Well, I got my doors off. This is my original door. This is my junkyard door. Still got to finish taking the door panel and everything off the junkyard door before it can go on. At a good stopping point there. And then we'll come over here and take a look at what's going on this side. So this is all my donor 2015 fuse box and harness. I need to go through and double, triple check some of these wires that I don't need. Clean up the harness a little bit, tape it up, and then we're going to get the fuse box tucked up into the dash. There's a spot right up in here that is going to fit into. I may or may not need to make a bracket or some kind of hold down. We'll figure that out once I get a little closer in. But that's the plan for today, is working on wiring. Well, I pulled my glove box out and got my harnesses all taped up, and then I looked up into the hole where my donor harnesses run through and realized that I didn't fully tape up the harnesses, so I was lacking some tape, and I didn't like the way it looked, and I wasn't too crazy about the potential reliability aspect of that. So I pulled the battery junction box back out, pulled the harness back through, and did some final taping on this. Much happier with where we're looking at it now. So we're gonna go ahead and reinstall everything, go back in it, and then I'll work on putting the interior fuse box back into the car. So this is the interior fuse box. What I did is I popped off all these plastic brackets that attach to the sides of the case here. So I believe that it's probably a somewhat of a generic exterior casing, and then they just Ford puts on whatever brackets they need. So my plan is to utilize two of these brackets, this guy and this guy. I'm going to cut them, and then I'm going to have individual small feet to attach up inside the truck. So we're going to get to cutting, and I'll come right back. What a beating that was. I finally got it installed. I got my kick panel back in. So if you kind of look up here, you can see a couple little extra harnesses and stuff, but overall everything's tucked within the kick panel and up in the side of the dash up here. See that connector right there in the center where the masking tape is. That's the top corner of the central junction box, interior fuse box, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I'm happy that I finally got everything back together. I still got to put the engine bay side back together, put my glove box in, trim this out, but that's about it for here. I got my black seat belts in, with the exception of this one, because this one was up against the wall, so that's on the docket of list of stuff to do, swap out that seat belt as well. Well, you know what they say, hindsight is 20/20. So I got my two door panels torn down, and quickly realized that they're not the same. So that's my Super Crew door. This is my donor door, which actually came off of an Expedition. It would bolt right on the truck, but I would have to use the existing door panel, which doesn't match my interior. So the main differences here is this area is where the handle would be on the 03, and this is where the handle is on the Expedition. See the door rod there. And then there's a couple differences across the bottom where the trim panel attaches. It just seems so weird that the actual interior body of the door is actually the same, but the inside center part is stamped out differently. So I'll show you over here on the F-150 door. So that's where the handle bolts in, and there's no handle provision there. And then this whole thing is shaped differently, actually. And then this is where the door panel attaches down here with screws, and the Expedition one bolts in there. So it's just different enough that it's not really worth trying to cut these holes out. And then all this would have to be either cut over, transferred, or whatever. And then I'd have to worry about depth and all that. So it's just easier to find another door. So that's the unfortunate news for the day. Would have loved to have used a donor door that's the right color, but it's just not worth it. So head to the junkyard and find another door and make sure it's off of a Super Crew this go around, and try to put that one on Craigslist or something. So I ended up putting my original door back on after the upsetting disappointment of buying the wrong door. So did that, hung my front end back together. It's back together. So I went ahead and stuck a lightning grill in there. It's not maybe not what I'm going to keep in there, but I've always wanted to run it just so I want to see what it looks like out in the daylight. And last time I drove it, the truck, I had noticed there was some small amount of oil drip on the back of the oil pan there. Had a little bit of a smell to it. So I'm gonna get the truck up in the air and see what might be leaking on it. Hopefully it's no big deal, but that's gonna be the what we're working on right now. All right. Well, this is not disastrous, but pretty much the worst thing it could be. So, see if I can show this on camera here. So my subframe here is pretty wet. Like I said, I had little traces on the bottom of the oil pan. So here's where I'm getting my smell from. You can see my cat has some little oil sprays on it. So that's burning the oil as soon as it hits it. So best I can tell, and it's even harder to get on camera. So again, you can see how wet the subframe is here. So what I believe I've tracked it down to, let's see if I get that wedged in there again. Okay. If you look, no, it's not going to show up. Okay. So up here behind the alternator is where my oil filter MMR bracket is, and then it runs over the top to the back of the engine area where I have my oil filter. So basically what needs to happen to even gain access to check any of those fittings, I gotta pull the alternator. To be able to pull the alternator, I need to pull the steering rack. Hopefully I can pull the steering rack without pulling out the steering shaft. So it's just overlapping one layer after another. I kind of knew that when I was building this, that was a risk or a possibility. I mean, it's no different than working on most modern cars, and especially of the sports car varieties, Mercedes and Corvettes and stuff like that. I mean, you're several layers in before you can even access anything. So probably won't happen today, but that's, at least I know what's going on with it.